It's so weird.
there you
isn't
go.
it? Well, it'll say.
No, we're in.
Well, this one says. Okay, wait. Hold on.
Look
It's
at
not in
that.
yet.
The following program is sponsored by Mr. Texas Real Estate.
It's got to say online. It still says sending data.
Welcome
There it
to
goes.
Real
Just
Estate
pop.
Radio Network with Mr. Texas Real Estate Jason Bible and Mr. California investor Robert Orfino. Join us as Jason and Robert talk about the hottest real estate market in the country, the entire state of Texas. Learn why Texas is such a great market to invest in and why it could be strong for years to come. Get ready to talk all things Texas on your new home on the way to the office. Texas Real Estate Radio.
Welcome to the show. Jason Bible, Robert Orfino, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Day one. Post Imelda. What a wild afternoon. So yesterday I'm at our wholesaler meeting, which was great. There were like 6 or 8 of us there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I think we would have had 30 people there if the storm hadn't popped up.
I agree.
So we got there early. We had a meeting with one of our staff members who lives close by, and trying to get her on, full time. And so I'm just sitting there at the coffee shop. You had left. She leaves, and a couple of people start rolling in. It's like 10:20, and it's starting to rain pretty hard. I get a phone call. Hey, I'm coming to your event. I was bringing 2 guests with me, but they can't make it. I said, okay, that's fine. And then I walked back outside. About 10 minutes later, I'm like, uh-oh, this is raining really hard. And 11th is starting to flood a little bit. So I called back to a couple of folks that I figured weren't going to make it or they were late. And I said, hey, you guys might want to turn around, don't drown. I actually said that. And one person said, you know what? They got those signs up now all over the place on Transtar. It says, turn around, don't drown. I'm like, yeah, turn around, don't drown. And so they're like, no, we're coming. It's going to be great. And then I get the phone call. Hey, I should have listened to you. I just turned around at 8th. I'm going to try and make it back to the office.
I know the saying is turn around, don't drown, for sure, and everyone should do that. But my personal model is go fast and you will pass.
That is funny. I was watching these cars, and so cars are, most cars are designed a little bit differently. Each car is a little bit different. And so some cars, the intake for the motor, the air intake, is much lower than it is in other cars. For example, I saw a lot of BMWs, Mercedes, and Alphas yesterday that were sitting on the side of the road with their flashers on.
Yeah, not doing well.
Because their air intake is much lower than it is in other vehicles. So they're just sucking in all this water. And then, of course, the trucks, it's kind of a completely different thing. But, when I was driving out of the Heights, to give you an idea of how much water there was water coming up over the hoods of most cars. And I'm just sitting there in the truck, and it's just kind of trucking along. Everybody in full-size trucks were fine. But just at least to get out. And then after, I think Jimmy told me he's got a Prius. He was stuck at that coffee shop till 4. And then I think AJ said he was there until like 2. I was like, oh, man. And those streets flooded quick in the Heights. I was kind of shocked how fast it flooded. But in any case, guys, it's a lot of rain, and the theme of today's show is taking a mulligan.
Yeah, very reminiscent of, obviously, of Harvey, and lots of comparisons being made in the media, and rightly so in a lot of areas. In some areas, not so much. We talked about it last night. We'll talk about it really, really in depth this afternoon at our landlord lunch.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to kind of shift the focus to talk about areas that are flooded and how we can go in and do some buy and hold stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of lessons were learned after Harvey here
Mm-hmm.
that I think should not be forgotten if you are indeed going to go back out to Beaumont and Winnie and Port Arthur and areas right here in the Houston metro area that have flooded and take on some of those properties.
Yeah, I know we'll have a lot of investors like, I'm going to go out now, I'm going to buy all these flood houses. And I'm like, okay, you can go for it, but there's some things you need to be aware of before you start running out there. I will tell you one of those is, and we did so 3:00 yesterday, Rob and I are chatting, and Rob says, let's do a webinar tonight because everybody's at home, right? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So we put together a webinar literally like 3:30. I send out the email. We had 50 or 60 people on last
about
night.
60 people.
And we've got a recording of that webinar. I will put that in the Mr. Texas Real Estate group on Facebook. If if you want to watch that webinar, I'll put it in there. Again, it's the Mr. Texas Real Estate Group on Facebook. But in any case, we did a webinar, and I talked about, the comparisons between Harvey and now, and what happened directly after Harvey.
Right.
And one of the shockers, we got on MLS and started looking around. A lot of these flip houses people are flipping above $300,000. They still own them today.
Yes.
2 years later.
280, 360, 400 days on market with very, very, very slim price adjustments.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're waiting for the market to recover. They're doing the long-term flip, buy and hold it for 2 years. Hey, at least there'll be no capital gains, right?
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, here comes another storm.
So here's the problem. For those of you flipping houses, the Harvey clock just got reset.
Right.
So let me explain what the Harvey clock is. So in Texas, we, especially here in South Texas, the Gulf Coast, for all intents and purposes, after about 3 to 5 years, we don't care about the last storm. Like, nobody cares. Like, everybody knows Houston floods, no big deal. If the storm had occurred to your house, in other words, your house flooded 3 to 5 years ago, nobody cares anymore. Like, there's no price adjustments, there's no reduction in value. It's just, oh yeah, I remember. This is what it sounds like. Oh yeah, that house flooded Harvey. I don't know, it was like 1,000,000 years ago.
Yeah, tax day flood. Tax day
Tax
flood.
day
That's all I
flood,
heard when
yeah.
I came in here. Tax day flood.
Yeah, tax day flood. That was in 2016. Tax day flood was like 1,000,000 years ago. That clock is typically 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And if we did not have a storm, if Imelda hadn't shown up, we would have had another year of no storms, and everyone would have forgotten about Harvey. It would have been like, oh yeah, do you remember Harvey? Yeah, it was awful. My house flooded. Woo, yeah, but I just bought a house in a great neighborhood, and it was fantastic. But it flooded in Harvey, and nobody would. The problem is Imelda just rolled into town, absolutely wrecked certain sides of town, and the Harvey clock. Even if your house did not flood in this storm, but it flooded in Harvey, that clock just reset.
Yeah, because it's topical now.
Yes.
Right, and who buys houses? Wives.
Yeah.
Right, and that's going to be on their brain.
Yes.
They're going to walk in and say, well, this one did flood in Harvey, and then we just had another big storm.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's a 5,000 square foot house in Memorial in a gated community with a pool.
Yeah.
Right? No, we're going to pass on this. Less than $100 a square foot.
Yeah.
No, we're going to pass on it.
Yeah, especially those who experienced Harvey. Right? We had look, when you start selling homes in Houston above $500,000, and here's mom with her 2 kids putting those kids into a flat bottom boat, watching all of the things in their household destroyed, they're not going to repeat that experience anytime soon. And Imelda just brought back all those memories.
Right.
And so the reality is, if you're holding on to flip inventory, in other words, a house you bought after Hurricane Harvey that you rehab post-storm, that you're now trying to sell and put on the market, you're going to be holding on to that thing for another 2 years.
And you made a good point last night. If you can afford a jumbo loan in this town, you can live anywhere you want.
That's right.
You don't have to worry about a flooded area.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you right now, this is the conversation that would take place in my household. I'm not dealing with any of that. We're buying another house.
Right.
Like, people that are buying $500,000 houses got choices for the most part. I mean, if you got to live in West U, that's kind of a different deal. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, you've got choices. And in those choices, you're going to say, do I buy this house that's been flooded and rehab, or this house that's never been flooded? I'm taking my chances on the house that's never been flooded because I don't want to experience that. I mean, think about the psychology for a minute. If you haven't been through this experience yourself, you spend an inordinate amount of money and time on securing the belongings in your house, your family, and the stuff you own.
Mm. And
after an event like this, all of that stuff you spent all that time and money protecting in that house is now sitting on the curb. It's a psychological 180.
Right.
That's why it's so mentally damaged. Everything's gone.
Yep.
Everything's gone. And it's kind of funny. You have these conversations. Well, everything's backed up to the cloud, and something. And that's all true. But all of your stuff is now sitting on the curb,
yep.
And your house is 4 feet and below are completely stripped out. So the reality is that Imelda just reset that Harvey clock. So I feel bad for the investors that are still holding on to inventory that they're trying to sell, but guess what? You're going to have to take some massive, massive price cuts to get that inventory to move.
You know, how about all the private lenders or professional lenders?
That's right.
Or the folks that want to pretend they're hard money lenders.
Yeah.
Right? That clock just reset again, too. You're going to own that house, right?
Yeah, now what?
Right.
Now what?
Hey, we're teaching the Airbnb class again, folks.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on out, learn Airbnb, because that was 90% of the inquiries I got was, hey, I got this 4.2 over Memorial I can't sell. Yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, the numbers aren't going to work for you because you got a $400,000 note on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that won't work. Really? You could try it. It'll soften the blow, but it's still not going to be profitable.
Yeah, and you're blazing through $2,000 to $4,000 a month in holding costs.
Right.
You're just getting crushed.
More than that, yeah. And you got the lenders breathing down your neck.
I'm going to send out an email today. I actually ran this by somebody yesterday. I was going to do it last night. Trying to figure out how to do it where it's but just sending out an email and say, hey, look, if you're a real estate investor, you got a portfolio of rental properties and you're tired of dealing with floods and all this other nonsense, send us the portfolio. We're interested in buying.
Hey, so we're going to be at the Seasons 52 at Westheimer and the Inner Loop today. We'll be there at noon. We highly recommend that if you're a landlord or thinking about a landlord to want to expand your portfolio, you come out for lunch today. It's you can bring a guest. It's $47. There's food, there's wine, there's all kinds of good stuff. But we are going to really break down neighborhoods. Usually we have a presentation. We'll run through that, but this will be probably a 45-minute workshop of identifying some areas and seeing if this storm presented some opportunities for folks like us who are landlords, and maybe buying out other landlords that are a little tired and type thing like that. So this will be, I'm going to say, more of a, not so much a networking event as it's going to be a workshop to really start identifying some areas. So if you're interested, if you're on Facebook, I just posted it. If you're driving or if you're listening at home, 281-401-9008. You can just show up at Seasons 52 at noon. Ask for the real estate event. We're in the back room. It's $47. You can bring a guest. Includes lunch, wine, all that good stuff, great desserts. But we're really going to break it down, right? And we're going to find out, hey, if this is truly a good play or not. So make sure you join us this afternoon. This is Robert and Jason, Texas Real Estate Radio Network.
Taking a mully.
Special.
Are you worried about waiting to drop, losing your job?
Oh, the sun's back.
Learn how to leave those worries behind. Tune into the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
Schools are off today, or some schools are off today?
Once HISD closes, everyone's closed. So why? I'm not sure.
Bring your kids.
Yeah, bring the kids.
Bring the kids today.
Bring the kids.
Kids eat free.
Free wine and beer for the kids.
Free wine and beer for the kids. Pour your own.
Teach them to pour. That's what we did.
The rights of free speech and free exercise are soft murmurings behind the doors of a person's home or church. These guarantees.
I spent a lot of time. I watched the Big Short. I watched the highlights again. Then I watched Margin Call. Then I watched the documentary on all that bailout.
Yeah.
It was really funny was they talked about, you know, it's the final days of Bush's presidency, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he's just like, well, I'm a free market guy. Let him fail. And they're like,
yeah, you can't let it happen. Yeah.
You cannot do it. And they let Lehman's fail, and there were a whole bunch of people around. It's like, this is possibly the worst thing we could possibly do.
Yeah.
They let it fail anyway, the free market guys, and it did not work well. But they had this, I don't know, this little kangaroo court where they brought Obama and McCain back in off the trail.
Yeah.
And they met in the White House. And
they were like, hey, boys, we're going to have a little conversation.
So Bush says, it was very clear that Obama's team had a plan. Didn't want to be there, but had a plan.
Yeah.
Deferred to the Secretary of the Treasury, and McCain didn't.
Yeah.
And it was a stunt. And it's like everyone's like, at that time we knew that wasn't. We knew who the next president was going to be.
Yeah.
This message brought to you by
But they're
the
like,
National
don't do this
Association of
populist
Broadcasters
thing.
and this station.
Yeah.
Don't start railing against the banks. We got to bail them out.
Welcome back. Jason Bible, Robert Orfino, Texas Real Estate Radio Network.
Flirting with another disaster.
Yeah, that is funny, isn't it? So you were talking about watching The Big Short and all that other stuff. So here's what's fascinating. Let's put. I worked for a guy named Bob for 15 years. He's absolutely fantastic. And one of the things he used to say all the time is, as compared to what?
Right.
So yesterday, they've already predicted. I've read some insurance CEOs and analysts and all that, and they've said yesterday's storm is probably about $8 billion in damage. Sounds like a lot of money, right? Earlier this week and last week, we had some repossessions of mortgage-backed securities, treasuries, that sort of thing, from the Federal Open Market Committee's desk,
52.
the Fed, and it was $52 billion.
Right.
So that's the equivalent of 4 Imeldas blowing into town.
Right.
So we're going to talk a lot about storm damage. We're going to talk about real estate investing, all that stuff in light of what's going on here locally. But I will tell you what's happening in the capital markets, in particular with the banks, adding liquidity, which they have not done in 10 years. So what is it when I say add liquidity? The bank, and by the way, it was oversubscribed by 50%, meaning they could have doubled the amount of money they put back into the system. So essentially what's happening is the Fed is giving cash to banks to give them enough money in reserves to backstop whatever's going to happen next. I'm just going to put it that way. Because otherwise, why would you need all those reserves? Why do you need all that cash, banks? Why do you need the cash? Unless there's something going on that we don't know. But I'll tell you, all the major banks participated. And it's very scary. Because this all happened before 2009.
Right.
Now, I don't think we're headed for a real estate crash, but there's something else going on in the capital markets. Maybe bond related.
Pensions, whatever.
Pensions, absolutely.
Pensions are huge.
So look at Imelda, and everyone freaks out about what happened yesterday. I'm like, well, something 8 times larger, or 4 times larger actually happened a couple of weeks ago, or in the last couple of weeks. And it's happening again. They're already talking about quantitative easing, the next round of that. The Fed, if you read their notes, it sounds like they're leaving the door open for some of that stuff. So, and we had another rate reduction of like 25 bips. So things about to get interesting.
Well, that's one of the takeaways from that documentary I watched was everyone is a free market capitalist until it hits your 401k.
That's right. You're
then
absolutely
you're like,
right.
hey, you better bail this out.
Yes.
And that's what happened. They lost $1 trillion in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
And from the fall of Lehman all the way through, they lost $1 trillion just overnight, 1 point something trillion. And people are like, oh, wait a minute. That does affect me.
Oops.
And so
I got to tell you, let me get on a political rant here. I got a real problem with conservatives, and I'm a conservative, but I got a real problem with it because that happens every single time. That, and the second thing that drives me absolutely insane is you'll get these conservatives, and I don't want to put a bullseye on Ted Cruz, but you'll get these conservatives that say, look, we need to lower our debt, we need to balance the budget.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but y'all all just voted for another bond initiative in Katy for a stadium and another, gazillion schools. Like, if you look at how conservatives vote regionally, oh, they'll blow money and they'll put out bonds and debt like you wouldn't believe. But when it comes to the federal government, whoa, let's hold on the brakes here. It drives me insane. I don't know why it does, but it just drives me absolutely insane. Fiscal responsibility stops when it's beyond my doorstep, right? Like, oh, this evil federal government's doing X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, look what you're doing at home. And then you whine about having to raise property taxes. I'm like, well, you just voted for these bonds. Who's going to pay for it, right? Drives me absolutely insane. So anyways, yeah, you're absolutely right. Everyone's free market till it hits your 401k.
Yeah. We just had a 12% property tax increase here in Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everyone's shocked. I'm like, You voted in all Democratic judges. Of course, this is exactly what they're. Listen, there's no secret.
No.
They're like, hey, we're going to take more money and we're going to give more social support.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. Guess what? That's what you got.
Yeah. I bet everybody's missing Ed Emmett these days. But everybody's laughing in the studio. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Watch those press conferences. Just watch them. And Judge Hebert in Fort Bend, same thing. Bet everybody was missing him yesterday. Elections have real consequences at the local level.
Oh,
real consequences. And you're seeing it firsthand. Thank God we've got bureaucracies that are big enough that we can just wait till the next. Well, because all the civil engineering projects have been greenlit. All the the department heads are still there.
Thing,
It's like, okay, next. Everyone's like, okay, we just got to make it to the next election cycle, and we can maybe we'll bring Ed back. We'll bring Hebert back. Oh God, thank God they're here. Everyone will like breathe a sigh of relief. They'll go, oh yeah, okay, so that Democrat thing, it was fun for a while, but okay. Whew.
Well, I told you when you came out to California, I'm like, hey, they're like, taxes are crazy. I'm like, yeah, but you can go to a park on a Saturday afternoon and they basically spend $7,000 on a local petting zoo to come out. You could pet an eagle.
Yeah.
But that's what your tax dollars pay for. You can choose to live there. You can choose to live somewhere that doesn't have a timber wolf at a 4th of July picnic.
Yeah.
I once went to a 4th of July picnic in Ranchos Palos Verdes.
Yeah.
And it was so elaborate. And I stopped and I said, who's paying? No one. Where's my wristband? Should I drop $25 somewhere? Because it was all free food and there was an eagle and a wolf. And it was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's paying for this?
Yeah.
And it's like, the city.
Oh.
That's
great.
Everyone's paying for it. Half the people, the 90% of people left town, they paid for it.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the 4th of July.
That's right.
But that you get, listen, Ben Franklin, right? You get the government you deserve.
That's right. There's a reason I live in Fort Bend County. I'm just saying that.
Anyway, we're talking about the flood. We're talking about lessons learned from Harvey. Obviously, a lot of folks that ran in and scooped up those houses that they thought were going to be $500,000, $600,000 plays. Even more, $1 million. I put this filter on it, $500,000. I was just driving around the map yesterday. There's $1 million houses that are still recovering from the flood.
Yeah.
There has to be, right? Because there was 200,000 homes that flooded, and let's say that even 80%, 60%, 70% stayed in place. There's still another 60,000, and we didn't get through all of those.
Oh, someone's gonna pull. I'll see if I can pull some numbers before the Portfolio Builders Club at noon today at Seasons 52. But I'll see if I can pull some numbers today of how many Harvey houses actually sold. It will not surprise me if it's less than 30,000. We know that 210,000 were impacted by the storm.
Right.
So
I would say a majority of people stayed in place and got there.
Or they stayed in place, or they're still holding on to the house and they're trying to rehab it
They
themselves.
didn't have flood insurance. A lot of people didn't have flood insurance.
Most of them didn't have flood insurance. So
you can still drive down some streets and just look through the house to the backyard.
Yes.
And that's how I know, that's still flooded. That's a flood house and it's still gutted right there.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, we'll be back to Texas Real Estate Radio Network.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Why? Because you can save 45% on packages compared to your high-priced cable bill. Wow. Take those giant scissors out and cut the...
Guys, give us some likes and loves, please. Please share this. It's probably an important show for folks.
The lesson we learned today is don't buy a Prius.
Yeah.
My wife wants a new car. I think I'm going to get her a used Land Cruiser because you can take those into about 20 to 30 inches of water.
So did Spring Branch get hit in Harvey?
No.
So that got massive flooding.
Massive flooding.
So that's a neighborhood tour tomorrow, and we'll talk about it this afternoon.
Yeah, Spring Branch is... That's interesting that it flooded.
But that's a good...
Independence Heights is another one. I'm like, it didn't flood during Harvey.
But Spring Branch has got the numbers that we like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty close.
So does Independence Heights.
Yeah.
Yeah, Castor didn't flood, right?
No. Well, we didn't drive by it, but
Yeah.
Heights didn't flood. None of the stuff down Surfside are okay. Even Dickinson didn't flood. That might happen today or tomorrow as everything drains.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Tech City, good. Appraiser was out there yesterday.
Or you were misled with what you were buying, or you overpaid and they underdelivered. Call Timeshare Compliance now for a free consultation.
Yeah, this is just like Troubles from Allison to a certain extent. Yeah.
That was a crazy.
So, my prediction is we had 70,000 houses that were damaged yesterday. So if we're at 210 plus 70, we're at 280. Let's call it. Outside of Houston, add a couple more, so you're at 300,000 houses in 2 years. That's a lot. It's 3 years worth of inventory. So it's going to be interesting.
Thanks, Terry. Our property manager, our project manager watching.
Oh, okay.
Is there anywhere we want to flood? I'd say Casper's the only place we'd want to flood.
It's funny. Yeah, I was watching all those duplexes in Stafford because they're on the edge of like the garage is like on the edge of the 100-year. The rest of it's in 500. There's a bayou that runs right behind it. Didn't flood in Harvey. Didn't flood in this. And
do you know something in Missouri City, or Richmond? One of the guys from Big Game Hunting says you own a house right around the block from him.
I do?
1 minute.
I wonder which one it is. Huh. My mother-in-law just bought one. Where'd she buy that thing? I can't remember.
She's down in flood zone. She's in.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Well, Adam and them were down there yesterday, weren't they? Are they working?
Adam is in Dallas doing self-help.
Oh, okay.
Don't ask me. I did have a little epiphany yesterday.
What's that?
You and I probably spend too much time studying what's on stage versus what's in the audience.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. I think we were looking at a house around the corner.
Long
Yeah.
got your favorite song.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
What's on stage versus what's in the audience?
Yeah.
But I think that's why our Facebook Lives are so effective.
Yeah.
You know what's funny to me is everyone's worried about the hurricane risk in Corpus, yet Harvey blew right through Corpus and caused no damage, and then it turned this place into a hellhole, right? All right, day one after Imelda. Mini Harvey. Flooded some houses that were flooded in Harvey, although it seems like just the preliminary reports I'm getting that a lot of the houses that were flooded had never flooded before. So one of the things I said in the webinar last night, which, by the way, if you want to watch that, you can go to the Mr. Texas Real Estate Group on Facebook. I'll post it today. But one of the things I talked about is every time we have one of these storms, it's neighborhoods, houses, business, and streets that have not flooded before.
Right.
It's always a new thing, right? It's a new, it rained over here versus over here. And I pulled up the rain totals from Harvey and compared it to what we got yesterday in Imelda, and Spring Branch flooded, which has never really flooded before. Right. Independence Heights flooded. Certain parts of Kingwood that obviously had flooded. Harvey flooded. In fact, some of them, I didn't realize there's that section, and I can't remember, Elm Grove. They flooded in May, and they just finished these houses, and it's flooding again. It's like, so there were some of those, but there were a significant number of houses in Kingwood that had never flooded before that then experienced flooding yesterday. So lessons learned. Take a mulligan here. Folks, get flood insurance. That's,
right.
I'd recommend that.
And I think what we'll do this afternoon is we'll spend a lot of time talking about the financing strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That'll be probably a big piece of the lunch.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that we're not going through and suffering like these other flippers did. So there's some strategies there. We talked about that before the show. We'll share that this afternoon. So, again, if you're around, I know a lot of people are kind of off from work, and you would be really well served to stop in at Seasons 52 at Westheimer and the Inner Loop today at noon. We're going to break down some of these areas. Spring Branch, to me, is very interesting.
I like Spring Branch.
Very, very interesting. Independent Heights, we've been watching for a while. So if there's some opportunities there, we're going to take a look at them. We'll talk to you about how to do the play, how to get the financing, how to set up the financing, what the right strategy is, and then to understand what your exits are. So, again, this whole little landlord workshop that's usually a networking event has just turned into a workshop. So we'd love to have you there. It's $47, and you can bring a partner for 2 people, so that's nothing. Free booze and good lunch and dessert. It's all good. So hope to see you there. It would probably be a very smart thing for you to, if you're serious about being a landlord and picking up some buy and holds, this is probably a very, very smart event to attend.
Mm-hmm. You're all about that lamb, aren't you? Isn't it lamb? What
Oh,
is it they have on
the lamb is amazing.
The lamb is pretty legit.
Yeah, the lamb's good.
And the desserts. It always amazes me when those desserts come out.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's a feeding frenzy. They make these it's like a double shot, right?
It's a double shot.
Yeah, it's in a shot glass. It's like a double shot.
Apple pie and
it's great. So what I think is funny is I don't know what it is. I like watching women eat desserts. Because when there's a bunch of them around, they start trading.
It's a weird fetish.
It's not like a fetish. It's just it's funny for me to watch because it's like, oh, you got that? Well, let me try that. I'll try. And they're like trading these little things out, and they're literally it's a shot glass. It's got a full dessert in it, and so it's always funny to watch the lady like, oh, let me try that. I like that one. Oh, that was my favorite. It's I don't know why it's fun for me to watch. It's always so fun.
Honey, I got some pecan pie.
Oh, we got some pecan pie and triple chocolate, whatever, and all. It's funny. It's just funny for me. It's the social interaction I find so fascinating. So
right.
Anyways,
right, because they don't want to be gavones. They don't want to.
Right. That's exact. So that's the underlying message. Like they don't want to shoot the whole apple pie, right?
You could easily.
You could totally do it. But they'll trade amongst themselves 4 or 5 of these things, right? That's what I like watching. I like the mental accounting that goes on when a bunch of ladies get in with all the desserts and all that. I don't know why I think that's so hilarious, but I get a kick out of it.
Anyway, you can sign up. We're on Eventbrite. And tomorrow we're going to do a bus tour, and we will head through Spring Branch tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in those neighborhoods, so we'll get on the bus. We'll go through that as well.
Can I give you guys some door hangers so you can start putting door hangers up? I think I'm going to be at my Airbnb tomorrow waiting for the cable guy.
But, you are, yes.
Hanging out with no internet, just sitting there, just waiting for him to show up. So Imelda is going to have a pretty substantial impact. If you're looking at flipping houses, you're going to have to do so with a pretty stern eye on what the value is going to be after the flood. I think that you are looking at a minimum, just based off what we've seen with Harvey, a minimum of a 25% price reduction.
Yeah, that was one of the big lessons we pulled out last night. We'll show you our numbers today. I think a lot of people went in with this 10 to 15% discount thinking,
nope.
No, there's no way this $700,000 can sell for anything less than $600,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they took a 12% adjustment when reality is they can't sell it at $450,000.
Yeah.
Right? There's a 30% hit.
Right.
And it's not just because it flooded, it's also because of the jumbo loans, because a whole bunch of other things that people aren't thinking about.
Well, it flooded, so let's go do this math real quick. It flooded.
Yep.
You also have a whole bunch of more houses on the market. And I think people greatly discount the absorption rate in some of these submarkets. They think, oh, yeah, well, I mean, they sell $1 million homes in Memorial all day. That's true. They sell 2 or 3. Yep. They don't sell 7.
Right.
So now as a buyer, you've got a lot more choices. As a buyer, you've got, do I go with a flooded house or a non-flooded house? And if I'm going to go with a flooded house, well, what kind of discount am I going to get? That's not unreasonable for a consumer to make. a decision for them to make.
I'm going to tell you something that I made a mistake on in Harvey.
Okay.
Because I had some investors, some private lenders,
Mm-hmm.
and when that flood came through,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, hey, I'll be able to weather this. I have insurance. And I did not give notice to my lenders.
Mm.
I'm going to tell you that if you're out there and you're flipping and you've got private notes on properties in Beaumont and Winnie and Port Arthur or parts of Spring Branch and all that stuff, today you must speak to your private lenders.
Yeah, or hard money lenders.
Or hard money lenders immediately and say, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to go figure it out. But I'm just letting you know that we may be affected here.
Yeah.
And it's that good communication that will survive, will keep you going through this. So just understand, you've got to reach out today.
I'll tell you this. Some of you guys may be better served filing bankruptcy today.
So, sometimes you are, yeah.
We'll talk about that when we get back from the break. Jason Bible, Robert Orfino, Texas Real Estate Radio Network.
If they're holding stuff from Harvey, I'd absolutely say this. I'm done.
You might just want to file BK and be done with it.
My mom's a breast cancer survivor.
Hard money lenders don't want to hear that.
But that's the reality.
Gold.
Oh, the gold!
I
got all the gold.
I got all the gold. They're coming to me. I got the gold. Yeah, there you go. It's like owning mineral rights.
Yeah.
You don't actually have the oil. You still got to get it.
Yeah, you still got to get it. Yeah.
You got to go down and get it.
Did you get any calls from our SoCal colleagues? Yeah.
I got a lot of people. I'm very blessed and appreciative of everyone who said, hey, are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. But I have my 3-day getaway back. And my EDC.
EDC.
My EDC and
I like
my
it.
first aid and 5 gallons of food that'll last 25 years. I'm prepared.
Did you buy those off of Marie Osmond?
No, I bought them off on Amazon.
We got a breakfast this morning. Second time this week, I'm putting biscuits and gravy in my tummy.
Southern Fried Arnold.
That's right. Boy, that Southern Fried Arnold
looks good.
Oh, jeez. Chicken and egg, and it's got that. What is that sauce they put on the top of it?
It's like a little. It's gravy.
Is it? Oh, it's a gravy.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Gravy. So it's gravy and then a poached egg and then a Southern fried chicken, then a biscuit. I throw a little hot sauce on there.
Yeah, when you put that hot sauce on there, I was like, ooh, that's how you do that right. You know, we're talking with a buddy of ours about this couple hundred house package. And I was kind of excited about that, but I was more excited about the biscuits and gravy. And then when yours came out, I was like, ooh, man.
Yeah, this is good.
The Southern Fried Arnold.
Yep.
Whew. I don't know. I think I'm still getting biscuits and gravy for our breakfast lunches, our breakfast meeting.
There's nothing else I need to buy there. No one has put a plate next to me that I was envious of.
The Toasted Yolk needs to be a sponsor of the show.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's the one on Fountain View. There's nobody there. Like, there's nobody in the morning. I know it. They have a full bar. That's great.
Yes.
It's a great place. Anyway, so we got a breakfast meeting there this morning that I'm excited about biscuits and gravy again. But in any case, these are the things we get excited about. It's not like buying another 50 houses. I mean, that's cool and all, but I'm like, can I have biscuits and gravy twice this week?
So I think we're talking about, hey, if you have a Harvey house that still has not sold and it's empty, or you're the landlord, basically you're taking $2,000 a month rent on a $3,000 a month note, or if you had some flips in these flooded areas going, I think you have to serve notice today, or at least by Monday, saying, hey, all bets are off. Right? I have every intention of doing the right thing here, but what you don't want to do is what I had to do is put myself in a hole for 2 years. Yeah,
I would really look at your portfolio today. If you are flipping houses, I'm not talking about rentals. If you got a rental that flooded, just fix the stupid thing and get a new tenant in. It's no big deal. Even if you didn't have flood insurance, it's survivable, right? Here's what's not survivable. If you're flipping a couple of houses that were worth $500,000 that flooded, take a 25% haircut, which is
even 300,000 in Spring Branch, right? So now you're done. You're down to it's a $300,000 hit.
Even if you had flood insurance, and let me explain this real quickly to everybody. Flood insurance does not cover the most important piece of a flood incident, and that is the reduction in value. And I will tell you right now, if the house is worth $500,000 and it flooded yesterday, you took a 25% haircut. Flood insurance didn't cover that. So you'll get a flood claim. You'll probably make some money on the flood claim. You'll be able to get it done cheaper than what the flood insurance will pay you.
Yeah, they'll pay you retail.
They'll pay you retail for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that $500,000 house, guess what? It's now worth $375,000.
Yeah, you'll list it $390,000. Here's what will happen: you'll list it at $430,000.
Yeah, and it'll sit.
And you'll be stubborn.
Yeah.
You won't realize in 30 days you need to drop that under $400,000.
Or in like a lot of flippers out there that are still holding on to inventory a year or 2 years later, you've got to cut your. One of the most kind of contentious conversations we had was the house that we owned in Memorial, and I finally just got to the point. I'm like, cut it till it sells. Cut it till it sells. $25,000-$50,000 a week. I don't care. We've got to sell it because there's more inventory coming on the market every single day. The prices are going to continue to drop for the next year. And I mean, thank God we did. We'd still be owning that house now. And Imelda just blew through.
Right.
I mean, you could be sitting on, if you were in a certain neighborhood, if you were in Kingwood, you might be sitting on flood number 2 in 2 years.
Right.
So I would really look at it. Let me get into loss mitigation strategy. If you're a flipper out there, if you're a builder, if you're someone who's got to sell these things in the short term and you can't rent them, you need to start at your portfolio with a 25% price reduction.
Yeah.
Literally, you took a 25% haircut in the last 7 days. And then you need to sit down and calculate, okay, how much am I going to lose? And if it looks like you're going way in the hole, you can't afford it, file BK Monday. Because you're not going to get, I'm telling you right now, you're not going to get out of that hole. And I'm watching it. We pulled up in the webinar last night again, and we'll share it today at the Portfolio Builders Club at Seasons 52 in the Highlands. We'll share with you guys today. We'll pull up some deals. Some of these guys own these houses for 2 years. They lost $100,000,
right?
At least. Some of these guys own these houses for a year. They lost $80,000. You got 5 or 10 of those? Unless you got $1 million in cash, you're done. You're absolutely done. So I would really look at your portfolio right now and back into, and let me say this. Those losses assume you had flood insurance.
Yes.
If you didn't have flood insurance, double that number. You took a 50% haircut yesterday between not having flood insurance and the reduction in market value of the property. Now, what's going to be insane is the amateur real estate investor is going to run out and buy a bunch of, quote, flooded flip houses and tell everybody they're going to, quote, crush it, bro.
Kill it.
I'm going to kill it. No, you're not. If you didn't buy those with at least a 25% reduction in value, you're going to get absolutely destroyed in 12 months, which we're seeing it now. There's still people out there holding on to these houses.
4 months later.
2 years later, they're still holding on to this thing at $3,000 a month in carrying costs. So I'm telling you, some of you guys need to look at your portfolio today. And I'm not talking about landlords. Landlord's a whole different discussion. But if you're a flipper, you may just need to file BK early Monday morning. Take the weekend, look at your portfolio today, maybe have a couple glasses of wine, a couple of adult beverages, realize that, oh my gosh, I think I totally screwed this up. And then come Monday morning, start having conversations with your attorney and say, I think we got to file bankruptcy because there's no other way out of this. I think that is absolutely what's going to happen. Your lenders are going to be furious, but what are you supposed to do? I mean, otherwise you're going to shoulder all those burdens, and it could get worse. So here's the thing. We think there were 210,000 houses that were, no, we know there were 210,000 houses that were flooded during Harvey. My estimate is there's 70,000 houses that were impacted this past week. So you've got 280, let's call it 300,000 houses. the banks are not going to allow after the second flood in 2 years, the banks are going to accelerate that foreclosure process. There's going to be a lot of inventory out there. It's going to be great for us in the short term.
Third flood in 5 years.
Yes, third flood in 5 years. Third major flood in 5 years.
Right.
So, and let me say this, that 25% price reduction is for first-time floods.
Yeah.
If your house flooded in Harvey, never flooded before, and flooded in Imelda, easy 50% reduction in the near term. At least the next 24 months, that house is worth half.
And you better do your due diligence when you buy these properties, because we've run across a ton of owners who fail to disclose.
Oh, yeah. Their owners are lying through their teeth.
It didn't flood. It didn't flood. I don't know. That's not what our insurance company's saying.
Yeah. That's not what your neighbor said. Hey, why is the grass dead in this entire neighborhood's front yard? That's how I could tell a neighborhood flooded. All the grass is dead in the front yard. Do you know why it's dead? That's where the debris pile sits. So it kills all the grass until the city of Houston can come out and clean it all up. Like, we know where the flooded neighborhoods are. It's not hard to find. So if you're trying to flip these houses above $300,000, you just took and it flooded in Harvey, you just took a major haircut with Imelda. And the clock reset.
Yep.
I mean, the only reason I'm giving you the doom and gloom reports because I'm hoping some of you listen and just cut bait. Because there's not anything. I mean, you've done everything you could do. I mean, there's no insurance for a reduction in the value of the asset. So,
no, it doesn't. And quite frankly, your investors want to know today.
Yeah, have the conversation today.
Have the conversation.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see you guys when we get back from the break. Jason, we'll talk about the positive side of a flood when we get back from the break. Jason Bible, Robert Orfino, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. Is that a keto biscuit? No. It is full. So I've gone to Snooze a couple of times, which is a pretty cool, it's a hipster breakfast place.
Sure is, yeah.
Hipster breakfast place. And when you order biscuits and gravy, it's like light gravy, turkey, sausage. And I'm like, this sucks. And
served in a martini glass.
Served in it's that kind of stuff. I'm like, this sucks. And then, and I had such a hankering for it, such a desire for that. Like that later that week, I went to Toasted Yolk, and I'm like, I need biscuits and gravy. And they bring it out, and it's fully leaded, it's greasy, and there's a sunny side up eggs on it. I'm like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. So I like Snooze, but man, you can't get biscuits and gravy. It's too hipster. Although their mimosas are pretty legit, I'll tell you that. Their coffee's pretty good.
So today, Portfolio Builders Club, I'll post the link again for you guys right now.
1 minute.
This should be a pretty exciting one. And then tomorrow we're going to go on a bus. Going on a boat.
Is it that Metro bus they drove into the drink?
No.
That's been making the rounds on Facebook.
It could be the stripper bus, though.
Ooh, is it going to have a pole in it, lights and stuff?
Yeah. We once had the stripper bus.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
on a bus tour?
Yeah, on a bus tour. Like, hey, this is not what we were really expecting. And he changed it out. We think it would behoove you greatly to be on one of these two events this weekend, because we are going to focus on the details and
10 seconds.
Start laying out a strategy for folks.
Division of Salem Communications, the same people who bring you this nifty radio station.
Welcome back, Jason Bible, Robert Orfino, Texas Real Estate Radio Network.
And so we got 3 minutes to go on the upside here.
So here's the upside. If you're a landlord, houses below $200,000, sale just started today.
Yep.
I'm already reading articles from the Chronicle, Houston Chronicle, where homeowners are saying this. Look, I'm 65. I'm retiring this year. This is my second flood. I've owned this house for 40 years. I'm done.
Right.
They're going to get their insurance check. You're going to walk in and buy it for $30,000, $40,000, put 50, 60 grand into it, and the house is worth $150,000
Right.
and it rents for $1,400 a month. There is a huge opportunity here. I can tell you as a landlord, my biggest mistake I made after Harvey is I didn't buy more rental properties.
Yep.
That house in the one flood house I still own went from $140,000 before Harvey to almost $190,000 now. That's the amount of appreciation. Houses below $200,000, buy everything you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
And that deal, when I bought it, was quoted 80% deal. It's not a smoking deal. It's a smoking deal 2 years later. It's a smoking hot deal.
So what happens outside of the flood in those houses under $200,000 is you get what's known as the long flip.
Yes.
And it's a brilliant strategy.
Yep.
We look at properties that we're having, we're like, hey, we're going to flip this one. It's like, you know what? Let's move this into the long flip.
Yeah.
Because in 2 years, this thing is going to be worth another $70,000. But even more importantly, the rent's going to go up $400.
Yeah. I was all in at 110, and it's worth almost 190.
Yeah.
If I had bought 10 of those, I'd have another $800,000 in equity.
Right.
You don't have to buy 100 houses, folks. But I will tell you, that window, it's not the neighborhood flooded, I can, over the next 6 to 12 months. You've got 6 months or less.
Yeah.
And you got to get out there and hustle today and get as much of this stuff under contract as possible. Yeah. And I would what I would do differently. We'll talk about this today, is how I would raise private money to be able to do that. So if you guys want to hear my strategy for buying flooded flips, because there is a strategy there where you can make money, and you want to hear my strategy about buying flooded rental properties, come on out to Seasons 52 today. It's the one right there in Highland Village.
Yeah,
Westheimer, just inside 610. It's what'd you say it was, $47?
$47 bring a guest. Yep.
Yeah, $47 bring a guest. Food is it's fantastic. Watch the desserts. I like the dessert show at the end with the shot glasses. I think we got wine. We got some red wine, some white wine.
We do, yes.
We'll have a good time. And we'll talk about, I'll show you guys some properties that we've got under contract or that we'll be willing to contract on your behalf. And then the second half there, or maybe the beginning, I don't know, we haven't decided yet. We'll talk about neighborhoods and flooding and finance strategies and all that stuff. Yep. So this is like a mini Harvey 2.0. Take advantage of this. You're not taking advantage of people because they want to get rid of these houses. They're done. So we'll see you guys at noon today. It's Jason Bible, Robert Orfino, Texas Real Estate Radio Network.
Good show.
Very good.
Decent show. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see y'all hopefully at noon today.